Thanks for watching my tutorial about how to make video tutorials. So in this tutorial I'm going to be mainly covering using Graphviz and Sozi to make an animated kind of presentation, and this is going to be similar to what I used in the scale presentation. And I'm also going to be covering OBS Studio, that stands for Open Broadcasting Software Studio. So that's what I'm going to be using to record the actual video tutorial. So it'll be a little bit meta because I'll be talking about the tool that I'm actually using to make the tutorial. So to get started, let me just show you the animated diagram that I made for the scale presentation. So if we click using the arrow buttons, we can go through these different topics, and you can see the relation of the topics from the graph. And the graph is based on Graphviz, and it's a language where you specify the graph structure declaratively, and then you compile it into an output. In this case it'll be SVG, and then we load that into Sozi and then animate the different steps through the image. So to start, let's open up a terminal and I'll go through the general steps, and we're going to be making a simplified diagram just so we don't have to go into too many details. So here you can see the interface first of Open Broadcast software. So if we switch, we can kind of animate the screens going from one scene to another. So I'm going to go to the OBS Studio screen, and so here you can see now I have the Open Broadcaster OBS Studio, and as well as a webcam here. So you can see how you can put a talking head into the tutorial. Just to be clear, that's being rendered so that the recording actually has the talking head, myself, in the output video. And one thing that you may or may not want to do is to have a separate stream with just that, so you can edit it in and out if you so choose after the fact. In this case we wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the terminal and go through and now edit a file. So here I have the file that's already made. I'm going to exit out of that and start a new one. So I'm going to go to Emacs and I'll say Sozi process dot. So dot is the Graphviz language that we're going to use. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is I'll make a kind of comment about the process that we're going to document. So first we're going to start with an idea. So that comes from our brain, and we get an idea, and then we're going to go to the editor and then create a dot file, and then we're going to take that dot file, close the editor, and go to the command line, and then we'll generate an SVG image, and then we're going to take that SVG image and put it into Sozi, and then we're going to get HTML and JSON, and then we're going to view that in a browser. So to make a diagram of this process, we'll first create a digraph, so a directed graph, so digraph, and we'll just call that Sozi. You have to give it a name, and then we'll create an open and close parentheses, and so then the basic of this dot language is very simple. So what we'll do is just create the boxes, so the nodes and then the edges. So we'll have this convention where the kind of objects will be the boxes or nodes, and then the edges will be what's coming in and out of each of the objects. So we have the brain, and that's going to go into the editor, and the edge we're going to label that an idea. So you'd read this as you have the brain connected to the editor, and what's flowing through that edge is an idea. And then we're going to go from the editor to the command line, and what is going to come from the editor and go to the command line is going to be a dot file. Okay, and then we'll go from the command line to Sozi, and the thing that's going to go from the command line to Sozi is a SVG image. And so then from Sozi, we're going to go to the browser, and the thing that's going to go from Sozi to the browser is going to be HTML and JSON. Okay, so now what we'll do is this is a dot file specified. So now what I can do is I can get out of this, and I can see that I have this dot file here. What I'll do, the command line tool is also called dot, and so I'll give the type of output file will be SVG, and then if we give it -O, that will automatically generate a file name output. And so I'll give it this Sozi process dot dot, and now if I do ls minus lrt, then you can see now I have this Sozi process dot 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 svg. And so if I do open Sozi process dot 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 svg, so I'm using Mac, it's not open source, but it's convenient. So if I open this, it'll open Inkscape, which is open source, and you'll see the output. So I'll show you the output here. So this is what the output looks like. Can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so you can see you start with your brain, you generate an idea. The idea, you take it and put it into the editor. You create a dot file. Then you go from the dot file to the command line. In the command line, you produce an SVG image, which you then take to Sozi, and then you get HTML and JSON out, and then you take that and go into the browser. So I'm going to just show a couple features of dot, the language, the graph specification language. There's a lot, so I don't really have time to go through that much, but here's what I'll show you. I'll show you how to make it go from, instead of going from top to bottom, it'll go from left to right, and I'll change the shape of the nodes to be boxy instead of ovals. So let me go back. So now I'm gonna switch back to the terminal, but I'm gonna go through OBS Studio so you can see how I do that. So now here I have these scenes. So at first I was, just a second ago I was on screen 2, then I went to OBS Studio, and now I'm going to go back to the terminal. And so I'm going to go back and reopen Emacs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify that the rank direction is going to be left to right, and I'm going to specify that the nodes should have a shape of record. So that's what makes it rectangular boxes. Okay, so now I'll save that and then go back to the command line. I can run this dot command again. It will regenerate that SVG file, and then I can open the SVG file in Inkscape. And so now it looks like this. And I have to change back to screen 2. So I'll go back through OBS Studio, and I'm going to go to screen 2, and I can make this bigger. Okay, so now we're ready to go from this command line. We got an SVG image, which we're looking at right now, and now we're going to go to Sozi. So now what I'm going to do, I'll open up Sozi, and you can see here, actually I'll get out of this and just show how to open it manually. So if I go to Sozi, it'll ask what to open, and I can just go to recent files, and so this is the Sozi process file. And so now I have the SVG opened in Sozi, so we're right about here in the process. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to add these different kind of scenes, I guess you could call it, or frames. Yeah, they're called frames. And so the key here is you add the frame, then you do the zooming and panning. You don't do the zooming and panning first. So so now we have the first frame, and we'll just have that stay zoomed out, and then we'll add another one, and we'll zoom in, and then we'll add another one, and then we can zoom out and then zoom in, and then zoom out, and then zoom in. So notice I'm going to create a new frame, then I do the zooming and panning. I'm going to do another one, I'm going to just do it fast now. So go to the command line, then go to SVG image, then go to Sozi, then go to HTML JSON. So this is a step that we're about to get to. And then finally to the browser. And so if we want to just see how this looks, before we save it, we can go step through it. So we go from the brain, go out to idea, go out to editor, go to dot file, go to command line, go to SVG image, go to Sozi, then go to HTML, then go to the browser. And maybe we'll have one more where it's all zoomed out. Okay, so then to save, we'll go here, click on this icon here, and so it's saved. And so now we'll go to the browser, or actually I'm going to go to the file browser, and let's see here. So here's the HTML file that was just created. And so now here you can see I'm in the browser, but I can do a little bit better. So say I just want to have this screen be the whole captured screen. So what I can do is I can go back to Open Broadcaster Suite, and so now I'm going to choose Chrome as my scene. So I set this all up before, but that's the kind of idea that you do. You kind of set the scene mise en place, and so now I can just click on Chrome, and it'll have a nice little fade effect, which you can probably change, but I haven't played around with that yet. So now I'm here in the browser, and I can just go through, use either the arrow keys or the space bar to step through this. Go from the brain to the idea, to the editor, to dot file, to command line, to SVG image, to Sozi, to HTML, to JSON, to the browser, and then back out again. Okay, so there you have it. Let me just go really quickly and look at OBS Studio and see how that was actually recorded. So go back here. So in OBS Studio, here you can see I'm on the OBS scene, and I have a window capture screen. So that's just capturing OBS Studio, the window, not the whole desktop. And then I also have here the talking head of myself. So, and if you want to see which one is which, you can toggle the visibility on these. And let's see here, what are their features? So here you have the different scenes. So setting that up beforehand is very useful to kind of organize how you're going to step through it, and it'll save time too, so you don't have to edit as much outside of Open Studio. So you can kind of think of Open Broadcast Software, OBS Studio, as a kind of live video editor. And if you do make mistakes, then you can take the recording and go back and put it into OpenShot, for example, and then cut things And so that will be what I will use to add the 5-shot sequence to the beginning of the video. So otherwise, I don't think I made any big mistakes, so I won't have to edit anything inside the video. Okay, thanks for watching, and this is actually before the scale presentation, but if you did go to my scale presentation, thanks for coming to that as well. And be sure to give me any feedback. This is my first time really using Open Broadcast Studio. When I'm at work, I use a different tool called Panopto, which is closed source. So that's the reason why I wanted to learn this, and presenting it kind of forced me to learn it a bit more better. Okay, thanks. Cut. Okay, postscript. How do you find the video after you're done? That's something that I should go through. It's not that hard, but if it's your first time, you'll probably have to Google how to find that if I don't show you. So you just go to this file and then show recordings, and you'll see here now, and here are the recordings. So this is the one that I just did, the main one, and this is the postscript.